Hey, welcome to my channel where I talk about dolls, and that's literally it. And in this video, I'm going to be covering a topic I've been meaning to talk about for a long time, but it just kept getting pushed because of unboxings and new releases and everything else I've done a video of in the past couple months. And that is the improvements I wish American Girl would make. And if you're wondering, who am I? What do I care about what American Girl does? A little bit of background is that until this year, I collected American Girl really hardcore. I still have almost 150 dolls, even after downsizing by a couple dozen. I have a lot of play sets and I have a whole channel about it. So some of you will probably already know how far back I go with American Girl. But then things happened and I'll be talking about a few of those things in this video, but I'm also going to be covering topics that I wish that American Girl would make the improvements because other people feel that way. So, sometimes people will make comments in my videos and I'll try to address if it's a concern that I personally have or if it's something that I know other people really care passionately about as collectors. For the record, this isn't to dump on American Girl or rage bait anyone or anything like that. The truth is, when I said that I still have all my American Girl dolls, even after downsizing quite a few of them, I also have a stack of American Girl products to get through unboxing that I will get around to this month. I want to be finished all of them by this month. So that's my way of trying to lighten the mood by saying that I still do want to be enticed by American Girl, but there are just certain things that bother me as a collector and, as I already mentioned, bother other people. That's why I'm going to start with a light topic that we don't come in too hot, and that's just talking about the way they use all their molds, because American Girl has so many molds that they could be pulling from, and I'm hoping that I can say this in a lighthearted way, but with like serious meaning behind it. Out of the 13 molds they have, they pretty much rely on two of them, Classic and Josefina, and sometimes they'll sprinkle in Sonali or just a random doll every once in a while. And the truth is, there are so many better molds that they could be using. I'm saying that as someone who has a lot of Classic mold dolls and a lot of Josefina mold dolls. But the reason I have so many of those two molds is because those are the ones they use over and over again. For example, this year they released, if I count correctly, 20 dolls, and that's if I'm including the Samantha re-release. And of those 20 dolls, half of them are either Classic or Josefina mold. And I feel like the more of them are Josefina than Classic mold nowadays. And the reason I complain about Josefina, in case you haven't heard me talk about this 100 times on here, like I have already, is just that there's something funny in her eye placement. I have a Josefina mold doll right behind me, and I have two of the Wednesday Addams doll to show how much I still do collect American Girl, and I will buy a Josefina mold doll. I'm not all talk. I mean, I sound like I'm all talk, but I'm not. I have turned down some Josefina mold dolls, even though they would be beautiful otherwise. And so of the two, the one I kept sealed, or on the one I kept boxed of Wednesday, she's perfect. Everything about her is perfect. This one, her eyes are a little bit off, but because it was Wednesday, I gave her a little grace, and I haven't complained much. But that's just one example of all the Josefina mold dolls I have who have really weird eye placement. So I guess if, they insist on using Josefina, as I know they do, I just hope they would at least at one point improve the sculpt. There must be something in the mold that makes the eyes sit funny, because it's her and Sonali, but Sonali, it's a little bit of a different problem. Sonali, I find, I'm veering off a little bit in the topic here, because I do wish they would improve the eye placement too, which will come up in quality control when I talk about that eventually. Sonali mold has a problem where one eye will be up more than the other, so you'll see a lot of white under one eyeball, and you'll see the whole iris on the other eye. And that even happens with their limited edition dolls. And the worst case I had of that was my limited edition Jasmine, who I eventually did remove her head and fix her eye by heating it up and lowering it. But it's like, I shouldn't have to do that to a $300 doll. So that's another problem I have with certain molds, is that they just don't come out very nicely. And speaking of the Sonali mold, I'll use her to segue into the fact that they don't use the Addie mold anymore. And the reason I thought of that with Sonali is she's kind of become the staple, or the doll they use the most for the black, if there's going to be a black character or a black coded character or a doll. Where, Addie has not had a new doll in at least the last two waves of Truly Me's. And the Truly Me dolls that were made with her mold have been retired. So I think, unless they are, they have limited stock left, I believe all the Addie mold dolls, aside from Addie herself, are sold out on the website. So that's a really weird thing that's happened with Addie, is it's like they want to keep her exclusive to the actual Addie character, which is fine. I can appreciate that, but she's the only one currently that they're doing that with. So it just feels very funny that they're not using her at all, even though there have been ample opportunities to do so this year. And, even recently with limited edition dolls and stuff like that. So it's really funny the way they choose to do their molds. I wish they would spread them out more, is where this rant started off in, where I was saying that I wish it weren't so Josefina and classic mold heavy. And I do want to give a little bit of praise where it's due, that they have ventured off a little bit. We've seen a couple Joss mold dolls this year, and Marie Grace, and even McKenna at one point, which is very strange because I think it's only her the third doll they've done with that mold. So it's just, there's so much room to use the dolls, because a lot of people complain that American Girl dolls are very repetitive, because you'll have, like, I'm not talking about the Isabel, the twin Isabel, but the first Isabel Girl of the Year, how she looks so much like so many other Truly Me's, because it's like a blonde doll with, I think they used to call them hazel eyes, the lighter green decal eyes, not the bright green ones that the other Isabel has, the the twin Isabel, but the lighter green that they used to do a long time ago. So it just seems like they could, if they mix things up a little bit more, had some more variation, the dolls wouldn't seem so repetitive, even though there's only so much you can do with so many molds. And one thing I've always, and I've said this many times on here, or asked this many times on here, and maybe someone has the answer and they've responded and I missed it. But what has happened to the Truly Me 4 mold, the first Asian mold? I don't understand. She's behind me too. I think she's right over here. So this mold, it's such a cute mold that they've used literally once. I don't know if they broke the mold or something happened to it, and the Jess mold was the closest they could get to her. I don't know. It's just weird that they only have used her once, even though she's so cute. And they've used Jess ever since they've created the Jess mold. They've only used her to be their Asian or East Asian coded dolls, and it's another missed opportunity where they could be using other molds. But if there is a reason, if they've ever talked about this, or people know the inside scoop behind that, please let me know, because then I'll stop complaining about it so much, because I complain about it a lot, because I really do like that doll. And it's a shame that we not just couldn't see her more, but we couldn't see her in more variation, because we've only had her that one time with the long black hair and bangs, which I love. But there would just be more opportunity if we could see her re-released someday. And I know that her mold has existed within the doll hospital, because I've seen a different, I feel like an updated version of the Truly Me 4 face mold, where the eyes were a bit bigger, because that's the thing about American Girl, is since Mattel has taken over, the eyes they get bigger and rounder. I feel like every time there's an update to the mold, the eyes get bigger and rounder. Classic mold is very guilty of that, and the one time I saw somebody posting a picture of the Truly Me 4 they got from the doll hospital, she had a lot bigger, rounder eyes. So I know that the mold must still exist in some capacity, so I don't know why they can't use it if it was just to keep it very exclusive, which is a very weird thing to do. Making molds is very expensive, so it just seems very strange that they wouldn't use that one. And I didn't mean to go on such a Truly Me 4 rant, but we all love her, so I just always been so confused about that. And then, so this is very much my opinion, that I don't think people agree with me, because I'm talking about variation here. I think it would be nice, and maybe it's because of dolls I've collected in the past that I feel this way, and I'm just very wrong because of that experience, that I think it would be really nice if they were a bit more adventurous with their skin tones on their different face molds. It's like I know that they make them to represent certain races or ethnicities, but at the same time, I don't think it would be that unusual or a ludicrous ask for, let's say, and I'm about to backpedal here by saying they could use the classic mold in more adventurous ways. Like if they made a classic mold doll with like a 30 skin tone or even a 35 skin tone, I know that I feel like they've made certain dolls to, like I said, represent with the features and how they should look. But people of all different skin tones can have different features. So I just think, you shouldn't just have to go into the CYO shop to get a classic mold in a 30 skin tone if you feel like that represents you, if you match those features and that skin tone. So I just think it's strange that they use certain dolls in such specific ways, and I think that also lends to the repetition. Whereas, like, for example, I've collected Integrity Toys, and one of the things I loved about Integrity Toys, it's an adult collectible, so I know it's a very different market, and maybe it's something you couldn't get away with kid toys. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. But they used to take any doll, every single sculpt that they had for the different faces, even though they were originally sculpted to represent a character of a certain race, they would eventually try different versions of that doll that would be in skin tone. So if it was a doll who was made to be, typically white or Chinese or African American, they would eventually try them in different skin tones and almost like change up their change up their race, because people identified with, like, oh, this doll looks more like me, even though she's usually made with a darker or lighter skin tone. Now she looks more like me, so I want this version of her. And I just think there could be a little bit more of that with American Girl, but please tell me if I'm wrong and if I'm saying something so stupid and I'm so out of left field because of adult collecting, and maybe it really is a ludicrous thing. So that's where I was saying before, when I'll try to explain when I'm saying something that's a me problem and not something that I just hear everybody talking or complaining about. Because I think to pick on Josefina a little bit more, she's the only doll who seems to range in every skin tone that I can think of off the top of my head. And maybe there are other examples, but nothing as extreme as Josefina, who can go from being, the Pink Stardust doll last year, so like the let's say white or Caucasian version of the holiday doll last year, and then this year she's the same mold for the black holiday doll. So I just feel like Josefina, for some reason, they just love her so much that they will do it, like they will be so experimental with her and try different things with her. And for me, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of it comes down to my own personal beef with the doll issues I've had with dolls of that mold in the past. And looking around my room, my displays I'm sitting with, the only other molds that I've seen any kind of variation as far as a skin tone or at least race goes is Sonali, because she started out as a half Indian character, and then now she's been used for dolls like Melody or the new long hair Truly Me long hair doll. So she seems to just range between South Asian or black, and the Neneo mold, because she started out as Hawaiian doll, so Pacific Islander, that sort of region, and then she was like Ariel and Summer, so she's another one who's ranged a little bit, but not very much. And I just wonder, I'm going to move on from this topic very soon, I promise. But I really just, my brain thinks about the CYO shop and how that's the only place you could really get an Addie mold doll, for example, in a light skin tone, or a classic mold doll, or even a Jess mold doll in a darker skin tone. So that's something that I really wish they could try, and maybe they experimented a little bit and it didn't work out so well. The specific example I'm thinking of there is Just Like You or Truly Me 44, who came out, quite a few years ago now by looks of this. So she has a deeper skin tone, curly, doesn't look very textured, but just, she's different looking. Maybe they do these one-offs as a sort of test to see how people take to a doll being very different. And I think she's very unique, so I don't know. I think I would like to see a little bit more experimentation. Have I talked about that enough? Yes. So let me talk a little bit about the CYO shop, because I talked about it a little bit, just to talk about how that's another place where it'd be nice to see some variation, not just with the molds, because they're so limited. It's like they've chosen, I feel like, and I could be wrong again and speaking out of turn and saying inappropriate things, but I feel like they've kind of chosen an Asian mold being Jess, the classic mold being the white doll, an Addie mold, Josefina mold, who was Hispanic originally. So that's why I'm saying I feel like they've just like limited it to one of each, where they could, I don't know why they can't add other molds that people would like, and just they've gotten rid of some great wigs. I think I miss having, I didn't do any CYOs when they had bangs, so I think I kind of missed out. I was going to say miss it, but I missed out on it. And I don't even know if I would get CYOs anymore because they're so expensive, but who knows? Maybe the reason I'm saying all this stuff is because it's like I want to be enticed to buy more because I like to collect things. And so that's where I'm kind of coming from when I'm saying all these random kind of things. And also, there are only so many outfits in the CYO shop, so it's unfortunate that they haven't expanded it. And in the few years that I've been collecting American Girl, I haven't noticed them expanding anything. The only thing that they did was add the Christmas outfit last year, which I think was a good idea, if you want to make your child a Christmas doll. But they also sold it separately, which was kind of a fun thing to do too, now that I'm, again, spitballing here and thinking off the top of my head, that they came out with this outfit that you could buy sort of limited time, and then they put it in the CYO shop for anyone who missed it to, I guess, entice you every Christmas to buy a CYO doll. But there's really, I think it's only like 5 outfits, and I already have them all, except for the one. There's one outfit that I don't have. It doesn't matter which one it is, but I'm saying it's so easy to get all the outfits, and then what do you do with it? It's like I don't need to buy. I think that felt like it was limiting me too. The price going up is really what did limit me. But even if the price hadn't hiked up the way it did pretty suddenly and pretty high, I think I would have been limited because there were only so many outfits and different accessories to choose from. So I wish that the CYO shop had a little bit more to offer with the clothes, and I think they have most of the eye colors in there. So that's good that you can get most of the eye colors. But you know what they don't have in the CYO shop or the regular AG shop, really? They don't really make any more boy stuff. Like, they have stopped making boys. And I know that when they did the refresh of the Truly Me line earlier this year, they did bring back a couple of the boys at least and gave them a new outfit, which is nice. It's like give us little crumbs, and that's all we can ask for at this point. But there was no holiday outfit for the boy dolls this year. There was none last year, and they haven't released a new boy doll in I don't know how many waves now. I feel like so there's a boy who's like in maybe 104 or something like that. He's in the early 100s, so it must have been about 3 years ago at least, maybe longer, that they did a boy doll. And I do understand that it's American Girl, but on you could say the same thing, that it's American Girl, so it's like it doesn't have to be limited to that. That's just the name of the brand nowadays. It wasn't always. So I think it's really see the CYO bled into me wanting to talk about boys, because that was always a big one for me, is like not having enough boy things. Because and I feel like they were doing it for a while. I know when they released Logan, it was a pretty big deal. Some people were upset about it because it's American Girl, and I personally can never understand why you could say no. I'll never understand people who say this shouldn't exist. It's like, yes, it should, and the things that you like should exist. It's like, don't tell people not to have something available for them. Just be happy that somebody else could get something that they like. And that was always weird. That's weird to me in any facet of life, not just doll collecting or American Girl doll collecting at that. And the reason I was talking about boy dolls and thinking about from CYO with the generators, because they don't have any of the closed mouth options except for Kaya, and then that becomes the only Kaya mold, and that becomes the only mold you can order unless you want to have an open mouth boy. And I understand boys can smile too, but it's just they do change a little bit of the face shape with the boy doll. So the classic mold and the Sonali mold and Addie that they made into boys, they've squared out the jaw a little bit so that it just looks a little bit more boyish. And I'm not saying that Kaya looks boyish, as like generally speaking, but the other boys do for sure. Like I've tried putting long wigs on my boy dolls, and you can feel differently from me, but I just feel like, oh, this doesn't work. The boy dolls, the closed mouths that they made boy versions of, I don't really like how they look with long wigs. So I would really like. I was about to say I really would like if there were more boy things available in the CYO shop, but I have to leave. The truth probably that they wouldn't sell as much, and maybe that's why they limit the boy things. Maybe the boy stuff just sits on, I was going to say shelves, but in their warehouse, because a lot of it's online now with all the stores closing down. But Mattel is such a big company that I think they could afford to make a smaller run of boy outfits if they don't sell enough. Uh, if they're there and people want them, I'm sure they will sell. It's not like the holiday outfit from, was it 2 or 3 years ago now that they last did one? They're still not there. It's not like they're still sitting there. So they do sell eventually, just like a lot of their stuff that doesn't, sell right away. They will eventually sell because there's a market for everything. Things go on sale. Listen, they're a big company. Everything's mass produced. So there's no secret that their prices are jacked up, and that's why they can afford sales. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have a profit, and they're a big company and they have to employ people and that. That's not one of my complaints. But I'm saying sales are just a big part of being a big company. So instead of making more designs for boys, everything is mainly girls. Like all their new release stuff tends to be the new clothes they release and things like that. They tend to be for girls, and they tend to be pink. And listen, I like pink. I actually do. But American Girl has used pink in such a way that it just feels lazy. It feels like uh, they're probably catering to a younger audience. But in my opinion, and I don't know if this is part of the topic I'm talking about right now, but I think there is a lot to be said about the adult collecting community. It's like when you are buying for your child, I don't think every parent is buying their child 10 dolls. They may buy their child $1 or $2 if they're very spoiled. I'm just assuming here, I'm not a parent. And then maybe some outfits for the dollar, $2, or however many few dolls they have. Whereas adult collectors, we have, like I said, for me, for one example, 150. And I'm not the most extreme. I'm probably somewhere in the middle, or maybe I tell myself that to feel better. But I'm just saying, adult collectors, we buy a lot more. We buy in abundance. We buy everything. Some of us buy every single release. And I don't think that's the same for kids. So I feel like, yeah, kids will buy more because every Christmas, a grandparent or just a parent, aunt, uncle, they will buy for a kid. But throughout the year, it is, I think we don't get enough say. We don't get enough say. Like it's like they don't think about us enough, except for the limited editions, which I'll talk about later. But that's what I'm saying, where they could probably, uh, not everything has to be baby pink and sparkly and glittery and just things that are tacky. And maybe you disagree with me, and I hope you do, and I hope you enjoy everything that they release. But it's like the way they use pink has almost been lazy, in my opinion. And I collect other toys. I don't ever feel the same way about pink that I do with American Girl. I just feel like they've gone to this very bubblegummy Barbie princess kind of pink that is not. It doesn't scream American Girl. Even their berry color, their mascot color, I guess you could call it. It's pink, but it's not the same kind of pink that you always see nowadays from American Girl. It's like every release has to have a Josefina mold and something pink, whether it's a clothes or the packaging or anything pink. And there are so many other colors. There's so many creative designs. And I realize I'm saying this at a time that I look like I'm at a funeral because everything's black and white behind me. But that's just a coincidence because there really are other colors aside from black and white and pink. But like, they're just not going into enough, even with their historical releases, which I will again probably talk about later. But like, not everything throughout history was pink. So I think I've hopefully talked that enough to the ground that I just hope at some point they get a little bit more creative with their designs, because like I said, it just feels lazy and tacky. And they're just like, oh, it doesn't matter what the design is. If it's pink, a kid will like it. And it'll attract them. Girls will think it's for them. And then that's all we got to do. We don't have to put any more thought into this. Just make it pink. And it's like pink or like a baby, like just like a pastel color. I'm now thinking about those, the way back in the beginning of the year, they released those. They were like the 2-in-1 outfits, sparkly and like a very babyish looking. I'm talking about this collection, if anybody remembers these back from earlier this year, where they gave you two options, but everything was really pink and just kind of goofy looking, if you ask me. But maybe kids liked it. And the thing is, I had actually recorded a reaction video to it, like a new release reaction, and it was so negative that I was like, I can't even upload this. I'm so mean in this. So that's what I'm saying, where it's like they've released things that I've just not to my or other adult taste. And listen, we collect a lot, so I think we have some say here. I think we should have a little bit of pull. And to any sort of naysayers out there who say these are kids' toys, that is true. But they started out more as kids' toys in the 80s, and most of those kids have grown up to become adult collectors. And as we've all kind of discovered, kids are growing out of dolls so fast. They're into, electronics, technology, social media. They don't really care about dolls that long. So I can't help but feel like, yes, that's definitely a valuable and valued market, but I'm speaking as an adult collector anyway, so what does it matter? I'm just speaking from an adult point of view. And of course, they do make great one-off outfits that aren't the thing that I'm complaining about. For example, they did the Gap outfit earlier this year, so here it is to anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about. So they could do stuff like this. I'm not saying it has to be a collaboration. Seriously, not everything has to be a collaboration. But they could still do something like a hoodie and a jean skirt, jeans of any kind, jean shorts, jeans. Not everything has to be these bubbly little baby clothes. So that would be a great thing if they were to get a little bit more creative and come out with designs and fashions that are a bit more mix and match and a bit more, everybody might like it. It's not just, trying to appeal to a very, very young crowd. And this is, I don't know if Gap designed this outfit that's still in my hand. That's why I'm looking at it. But they have a design team. So they could have people just, come up with something more casual, something that is a bit more mix and match. I already said that, but I'm saying that having this outfit in my hand that I have not mixed and matched because I love it so much, but I could, I could mix it and match it if I wanted to. But the real problem there, not that there are collaborations, but that there really isn't enough historical anymore. I think about the few releases that there have been this year have been so random. They re-released, for example, Samantha, just almost like a re-release of what they did last year with the other three girls, Addie, Kirsten, and Josefina, and then this year it was Samantha. They changed it up a little bit, oddly, but then there was a random re-release of I was going to say Sonali because of Sonali mold, Melody, and all of her stuff was pretty much pink. And I don't know if the 1960s was that pink that all her new stuff had to be pink, but it was very cute, so I'm not complaining about that. And even Mary Ellen, she had, I think it was one random outfit, pink and yellow, but pink, pink with lemons. And so it's just so random, all the things that they release. And there's not really been a good collection when you think about the last two historical releases, meaning the Millennium Twins and Claudia before that. And I'm about to get really biased here because Claudia is my girl. Like, that's my favorite. She's who got me into collecting American Girl. So obviously I'm a newbie. She came out, what, 2022, I think? So that's not that long ago. But I have everything of her. And it was easy to get everything of her because there's really not very much, the same could be said about the Millennium Twins. So that's why, or the Hoffman Twins is probably how we're supposed to refer to them. So that's where I'm saying when they're not doing the same pattern that they used to do, where you would have specific releases to the seasons, like there would be like the birthday, the Christmas book that would come out. Now it's just these random willy-nilly things for all the historical dolls when they happen. And while that's not the biggest complaint for me, the lack of historicals, I know that's something that really upsets a lot of American Girl collectors. And I think a lot of American Girl collectors have been really turned off and sort of felt they've been pushed away and they're not really into American Girl because of the barbification. I can't believe I haven't said that word yet, because that's how people really feel about American Girl, is that it's just taken, Mattel bought them, so there was just a matter of time until American Girl turned into Barbie, literally and figuratively, but especially literally. I think the thing that's really missing about some of the historical releases is there used to be, and this again, coming from somebody who's a newbie, I've already confessed that Claudia is what introduced me, it really got me into American Girl, not introduced me, but what made me want to start collecting, is that it doesn't feel like the same care and research goes into, I mean, the Millennium Twins, that wasn't, I know a lot of us would think it's very historical, but it was like 25 years ago. So I really liked their journals, so I don't really feel like I'm sure there are parameters that the authors have to follow. So I did appreciate. I think because I was there, right, for 1999. So I really appreciated all the things that happened in that journal. So that's sort of gray area, I guess, because I would imagine there were certain things going on in 1999, particularly in the States, that I don't think we could talk about in a kid's book, if you know what I'm saying. Like things that going on in schools that, schools didn't feel as safe. That's what I mean. I'm sure things like that couldn't be talked about because this still had to be, it still had to appeal to a certain audience. But I'm saying, like, when you look at the clothes and stuff like that, there was just so much more detail put into the historical, I would say more so the outfits, and maybe my problem is I don't know enough about the new things that came out this year for Melody and for Mary Ellen. They didn't feel as grand as some of the older releases, and maybe that's my own ignorance, and I'm probably speaking out of turn there again as well. It just feels like they're putting so much more, I was about to say effort, into the limited edition and collaborations, but the fact is there's less effort, and I think that's why they've strayed off into this limited edition areas, because they don't have to put in all the research. They don't have to look up designs and come up with designs, because they're just making dolls based on things that already exist. So making an Alphabet doll is easy because somebody already designed that outfit for the movie. Just like Wednesday already had her signature outfit from the show, and every collaboration, Clueless, it's like they don't. It's just like, oh, all they have to do is put it in an 18-inch doll scale, and so like you just come up with the patterns, that's it, one and done. And it's it's very easy for them, and they can slap a limited edition number, slap a limited edition label on it, and charge more for it, and nostalgia bait people like me. Like I said, I'm guilty of it. But I'm saying, like, that's sort of, I think, the problem that they're creating for their fan base, especially the people who are I'm going to say purists again, but the people, the people who've been around for a long time, unlike me. And so they want to see a little bit more of that quality, and not just quality in the designs and the quality control, because I'm gonna have to talk about quality control at some point too, because we've all been victims of their quality control lately. But I think the biggest part that people miss is just that real research and effort that went into making the historicals, because that's what American Girl literally was. That's what they were founded on until the Just Like You came out. That's what they were called, American Girl of the Year. Until no, American Girl of Today came out. So before that, it was all just historical. But even if I'm not talking from my own experiences, I am talking from people. I've made a lot of friends through this channel, and reading people's comments and engaging with people. So that's where I learn a lot, not just about the past and even the present, but I learn how people feel about American Girl. And so a lot of what I'm saying is more reflecting of how people have communicated what they feel about American Girl now compared to what they grew up with and what they really loved about American Girl. So that's why, even though I may sound like I shouldn't be the one speaking about this, I do have I'm within proximity of the history of it. But when it comes to quality control, you don't have to be within proximity. You just have to have a couple dolls, and you've experienced the bad quality control that has that has really taken over American Girl. And I don't know how far back it goes. I got to be honest, because I don't have much. I do have a lot of older stuff, but I just feel like most of my stuff is within the last 5 to 10 years, and I can see a decline and and a change in the mold that I mentioned a long time ago in this video. But there are things that I didn't know were issues until very recently. Like even sewing of the neckline has been really bad on my Raquel doll. I love her. I won't return her because I love them. It's like once I fall in love with the doll, I'm going to cover that up anyway. But it's just to think that happens. And one of the excuses that American Girl has, and I hate it, and I hope everyone does too, because there's no way we shouldn't, is when they say, well, they're dolls, they're not supposed to be symmetrical. It's like, yeah, they're dolls, so they are. They're not. It's like when they'll say real people aren't symmetrical, and it's like, yeah, these aren't real people. These are dolls. These are things that you mass produce, and they can look better. I never want to look at a doll where one eye's looking one way and one's looking the other. That is, I just don't think there's an excuse for that. These dolls are expensive, and even if they weren't, I feel like there are cheaper dolls, cheaper 18-inch dolls on the market that will have that won't have some of these particular flaws that they will just try to excuse away. And I just don't think it's excusable. I know, listen, I think the point of this, now I'm coming in hot. I think I started out kind of light and that was my plan, but now I'm getting going because of the eyes. The eyes really bug me. And that's like any doll that I collect, the eyes are the most important part for me. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people agree. But yeah, the eyes are a problem because every like human character is in the eyes. So your doll's character is in the eyes too. So when one's looking over there, what do they call it? Achiphoria. One's looking at you, one's looking for you. I just don't like that, and it makes me not like my doll. And I'm lucky that I can fix it to a certain extent. Sometimes it's not fixable, but it shouldn't. You shouldn't have to fix the eyes on 135 because that's the base price now, $135. You shouldn't have to fix something like the eye placement because it involves making a doll the warranty null and void because you would have to remove its head, heat it up, and do all these things that not everyone's comfortable doing. I am, but I don't want to have to do it, especially to a limited edition doll that I've had to do it to too. So that's like the next level of problems. And then a lot of let's pretend you have a store because most of us do not have a store to go into American Girl and shop at. There are certain things you can't see even if you do try to check every doll for the face paint you like or the eye placement you like. Wigs, I whatever you get, what you get is what you get. There's nothing you do about a wig if you get it home and it's in a bad it's I don't want to say it's in bad shape because the wigs are I do think they make very good wigs. And I'm not trying to just digress by saying that. I really do like American Girl wigs. I think they're like a great quality and it's like there's something I am going to get back to complaining in a minute. I'm now thinking about how much I do like an American Girl wig. So it's so disappointing when you get a bad one or you get one that's, got flaws, things that you have to pick out a lot of hairs or something like that because the wigs that they make are lovely. They're lovely quality. It's like they're thick but not heavy. Do you know what I mean by that? Like they're so full, but they never make your doll topple or look like it's too much hair. So I really appreciate that about American Girl wigs. What I don't appreciate is, you get like this bad, you'll find this one curl that won't stick or something like that. And I know that sounds so nitpicky, but I think I'm kind of nitpicking. And I haven't had a lot of problems with wigs, but I know that other people have. So that's something where I'm kind of speaking on other people. And sometimes, okay, I'm okay to fix curls to an extent to make them look nice. But like if you're buying, for example, again, the limited edition dolls, I wish there was just a way that they could make sometimes the curls look a little bit better because not everyone's comfortable. And sometimes you're not even going to open a limited edition doll to fix the curls, but you really want to because they look pretty bad. And if you're paying that much for a limited edition doll, because I think that's what I'm still complaining about, right? Limited edition dolls, quality control. So much to talk about. I guess what I'm saying is I just wish they would take a little bit more pride in their products because, I've collected dolls, all different types of dolls, smaller companies that, really want their dolls to be as perfect as possible. And, and everybody has their version of a doll hospital, patient care, spa, whatever your doll that you collect has, everybody has some kind of facility or service that they have because everybody wants their dolls to be perfect. But, I just think there's more room for American Girl to care about how their doll is presented and that it is in good, like a good quality. Like you don't have just like weird paint. And I've seen Raquel dolls coming out where like it looks like she has no teeth. I think she only has like half her teeth. And it's like, how did that get past? Granted, they're mass produced. So there's just a lot of product coming off of the assembly line. But at some point, somebody in the warehouse, somebody had to see it somewhere and be like, oh, maybe we shouldn't send this doll because this looks a little funky and this person's not going to be happy with the doll they got. And then who has to deal with it? Customer service. So I mean, I'm going off on a different rant, but yeah, I just think that I really do wish that they would take a little bit more pride in how they feel and not make excuses for dolls that are, that they shouldn't have made the past quality control, but then they did. Because they're a big company, and I think that they would have the bandwidth for it. And to gentle it down a little bit, I do want to say that I haven't had too many glaring issues. I may be a little bit more forgiving, but I have seen people posting their dolls where they're glaring, and I know that I would be really upset if I had gotten that doll. So I'm saying, even though little odds are going to get through and you can't help that, I feel like I've been pretty lucky, or at least if I've gotten something, I could fix it one way or another. but not everybody should have to do it or is comfortable doing that. So that's what I'm saying. I'm just trying to, trying to say this is a complaint, but it could be, I don't want to say it could be worse, but I'm saying like I've been lucky than other people at least. And in particular, I think they should definitely put a lot more focus on their limited edition dolls. They're so expensive. And as I already mentioned, some people don't want to open them. So that's always, that is extremely disappointing. And I already mentioned my own Sonali. I keep wanting to call her Sonali now because it's her mold, but my limited edition Jasmine doll, who I went through a lot to get her because I'm in Canada, by the way. I haven't said that yet in this video, but I usually would have by now. And that'll come up later too, so that's why I should probably drop that in there at some point. And then another thing about limited edition dolls that would be really nice if, and I know this is an easy thing to figure out, but they have to figure out the numbers, like the limited edition sizes, especially these holiday dolls. They're huge. The Stardust dolls from last year overlapped with the golden glimmer, the glimmering gold dolls of this year. I know the Josefina mold now has finally sold out, but the Claudia mold is still there, and I need to say something about that because when this is a little bit off of the rant, this is a little bit off topic, but last year when I got my limited edition Claudia doll, Stardust doll, I got a few. I think I got 2 or 3 to begin with, and I was so shocked that there were only 3,000 of the Claudia mold and 10,000 of the Josefina mold, and I just did not understand why there was such a such a huge edition size difference. But then look at me a year later, mud on my face because Josefina mold sold out faster than Claudia mold. I'm so I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, I'm embarrassed on the one hand, but I'm also, I guess, because I love that Claudia mold, right? That's my favorite. So I just can't help but feel like, wow, why didn't she sell faster? Maybe it's the curly hair. I don't know. We can all make excuses. But what I'm saying is I don't think a limited edition doll should take a year to sell out. And it makes them just less desirable as a collect. So for the record, I think I ended up buying 6 or 7 of the Claudia mold dolls. So that's with me buying so many as I did as one person. 3,000 still haven't sold out a year later. So that's where it's like they really do need to dial it back. I think this year, so that was 13,000 last year between the two molds, is how they sold it publicly, but people found out the numbers behind the scenes and shared it on social media because we're terrible. And then this year, I think it's 10,000 between the two molds again. So there's the Josefina mold and the classic mold. And, maybe they're hoping Josefina will be popular if she was more popular last year. I don't know. That's not the point I'm talking about. The point I'm talking about is they really need to lower these holiday doll edition sizes, because at that point, 10,000, is that even limited edition? That's like mass production. There are dolls that I've collected that don't make that much of a regular run of dolls. So at some point, especially for the price point of $300, I just don't think that 10,000 is a limited edition. That's huge. And so the doll becomes less desirable. So they're going to have to go on sale. I'm not sure if they have by the time I upload this, but if they just could figure out the right numbers, and I know that is tricky, but they really need to, because people are not going to want to buy those limited edition dolls, and they keep releasing them. Look at the Cinderella doll. She was, in my opinion, a less accurate version of the Playline doll, but they still made a huge amount for her too. Josefina mold, maybe that's why. So I just think they really do need to dial it back a little bit with the edition sizes. And I think they have to figure out that what they think sells and what they think people want isn't necessarily what people want. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Wicked dolls, because they made more Glinda than Elphaba. Glinda is the blonde character who has a pink pajama set, whereas Elphaba has green skin and black braids or whatever. And clearly, Elphaba is the star of the show. So it's like they're always trying to push this pink blonde thing, right? And I know it must be because it sells, but think about Wednesday, and it was too late by the time Elphaba came out. They were in production at the same time, the doll runs. But Wednesday, when have they ever done a goth core doll? And so they probably didn't know that she would sell so well. But I still think like it was a good number. I wouldn't say produce more. I'm just saying in the Elphaba situation, they should have known that she's the star of the show, that they should have been more Elphaba dolls than Glinda dolls. And that's where I'm saying they have to figure out the numbers, and that takes some work. But I mean, it's been a few years for these holiday dolls, so please next year don't make so many of them, because I like the idea of collecting a holiday doll. I do, but not if I know that buying it now means it's going to go on sale 30 more times after I buy it, and then I'm going to feel like a heel for buying it at full price. So it just makes it just, it makes the doll feel less special, like less limited. It doesn't feel like I'm buying this heirloom doll. It feels like I'm buying this overpriced doll that you're going to have to offload somehow someday because you're making too many of them. And, you're making them all kind of samey, just a doll in a gown, kind of like the old holiday Barbies because it's Mattel and the Barbification of American Girl. So, American Girl has been adventurous with their holiday dolls. It hasn't always been a gown like Pink Stardust and this year's doll too. But that I understand they want to have a certain theme to their brand, but just get the numbers right because nobody's going to buy them at the full price. And then there's another issue with the limited edition dolls and some of the products in general is that, and this is going to lead into just like an avalanche of complaints or things I wish they would improve upon. The fact that they don't ship their limited edition items internationally. And I've already mentioned now, I'm in Canada, so we share a border, we're next door neighbors, and they wouldn't even ship here for the longest time. They've now started to put some of them on Amazon, but it seems kind of like pick and choose what they all put on Amazon, and sometimes it's the doll itself will sell out before it makes it to Amazon, so it didn't even matter in the end. Or sometimes it'll randomly, like it's just so random with how they put it on Amazon Canada. I mean, I'm grateful, especially because it doesn't go to any other Amazon. It's not like Amazon Germany or Amazon UK is getting them at all, as far as I know. So I, as a Canadian, don't want to complain as much as other people can and do and should. But I'm just saying, it would be really wonderful if a lot more of your products were just available more worldwide. I often hear the stories and comments in my videos about what people overseas, I'm saying overseas from North America, what they have to go through to collect their dolls, forwarding services and, eBay sometimes. And it's just, is there no way that these dolls could just be more available to other customers? They come out of China, so I'm just saying that they already start out outside of the States, so they could really just be available. And I understand, I might get shady later, but I understand that it's American Girl. But that doesn't mean that people around the world don't appreciate them and like the dolls and the history and like America, like, that they like the country. So that it seems odd that they could have this bigger collector base, help them out a little bit more, make them more accessible. And I don't understand why they don't. I guess and I'm saying, I understand that the limited edition products they hope will sell within the States or within America, United States of America. They would hope that it would sell there enough that they wouldn't have to sell internationally. And I have seen some behind the scenes wording to know that there is a little bit of a mentality of, oh, this is going to be a monumental thing. We want this just to be in the States because it's American Girl. They don't word it exactly like that, but I can tell you that is exactly how, if you're reading it as a non-American, that is how it sounds. But I don't think that should be tactic used for distributing the products. And this does bleed into other topics that I want to talk about, so I may bounce around a lot for the next little bit. Just a little bit of a warning, as if I haven't been bouncing around this whole time. But there's another issue with collecting American Girl and, being outside of America that is very much feels like, that is trying to how do I say this? Exclude non-American collectors, and that is their berry rewards. And some of you may have known this was going to come. And I just want to, one thing I should say is I used to have an American address as well as my Canadian address. I had berry rewards, and that was pretty much, the berry rewards, having it is what really made me get intense and hardcore with collecting, because there was something so addictive and motivating about collecting the rewards. And then I had a lot of issues with it, and then eventually, it was just a lot of issues, let's say that. And in the end, I was really upset about how it went down. I was like, I'm not going to collect American Girl anymore. For the record, I have had enough time to sit back and be like, you know what, it's good that happened, because I was collecting too much. There was too much of that dangling carrot sensation of the berry rewards, and it was dangerous for me. It was not good for me. And like I said, it was making me collect too much. Like I wanted everything that came out. I was like, oh, I like that. Well, not more than this much, but it's like I would look for any excuse to buy anything. So I was like, well, I'm going to collect rewards anyway, and then I can use the rewards. So it's like, it's kind of paying for itself. So I just had this whole like addictive mentality behind it. So now that I've had time to step back and say, okay, good, I will never collect like that again, because as a Canadian, I don't qualify for berry rewards. And then now it has to be something that is really special to me, like Raquel or like Elphaba or Wednesday. I love them so much that I was like, you know what? It's good that I've had time to sit back and get over my hurt feelings or whatever it was, my feeling excluded. And now I can just buy what I want and not feel this sort of push to buy because I'm going to get rewards that I didn't end up ever getting because they were just terrible. But I, you know, I do collect rewards for other things I collect. You know, I have Living Dead dolls. I've cashed in my rewards there, even though it's an American company and I'm in Canada. Because one of the things that American Girl says about why the berry rewards is only for Americans is because they compare it to sweepstakes for some reason. They say it's like, I don't know, a lottery. You know how I, as a non-American, couldn't partake in an American lottery or a sweepstake of some kind, but this is a rewards program, and I partake in a lot of different rewards programs with American collectibles and companies, and you know, even Target. I forget what that's called, Red Circle or something. You know, I was never not allowed to collect those, even though you know it's all the same thing. So again, it just felt like an excuse to exclude people and say, well, this is American, this is American Girl, and that has been said to me on the phone before, and that's why I keep bringing that up in such a shady way. But even if you shouldn't be saying that while working at American Girl, it still does create that feeling and that sort of atmosphere. Like, oh, we only have our limited edition products available within the States because this is American Girl, you know, and we don't want the rest of the world isn't allowed to have this stuff. And I'm saying that as a Canadian, again, as someone who I have access to enough because they still ship a lot here. But for the record, if any of you don't know, for I think 5, maybe 10 years, I think it was 10 years actually, American Girl was sold in Canada. We were able to go into this bookstore called Indigo, and it was like there would always be like an American Girl boutique. So sometimes it was a section, but at the really big Indigos, it would have its own entrance. It was all American Girl. There was a salon. It really was like a mini version of what you would see in the US stores. And so we had total access, not limited edition stuff. So it was still limited in some sense, but you could at least see them in person. You can go in and you can pick between the different faces that you know, whatever spoke to you or whatever looked like it was in the best condition to you. So we did have that experience for 10 years. And a lot of us became collectors throughout those 10 years, Canadian we'll talk about. And so now that it's changed, there was a bit of an adjustment. And I think that's where a lot of my, let's call it passion came from with the whole berry rewards thing. But even now to this day, it's like, you know, they've made it so much trickier for Canadians, but not as tricky as other countries. And that's where I'm trying to praise where I can that at least, you know, we can still order from the website for most products. And then not just limited edition items, it's random items that don't ship here too. For the longest time, Moana didn't ship here. She does now. I don't know if they just wanted to make sure everybody in the States got their Moana doll before the movie came out. And now they're like, okay, everybody has it. Now we'll let Canadians have it too. Sometimes you just get these weird feelings when you're collecting American Girl. That's what I'm saying. And so the Melody release that came out, and I was glad for that because I was really tempted by the Melody stuff. And I was like, okay, you know, it's a good thing I can't order the new outfit and the salon because I probably would have crumbled, and to fit those things, I would have regretted it. But that's what I'm saying, where it's like this is randomly that they don't ship to Canada. But as far as I know, they don't ship at all outside of Canada and US. I heard there's a Mexico store now. And so I would imagine they might have access to buying American Girl products too. But outside of North America, I don't think anyone has any access unless it's through eBay or through some kind of a forwarding service, a third-party shopping service, I think you would call it. So I don't understand why they do that. And I've heard that I first, on one hand, heard that they used to sell internationally and heard that they were planning to do it again. I think last year is what I heard, that they were trying to get that back, and then they didn't. I don't know. There must be reasons behind the scenes that I don't understand because I don't work there and it's none of my business. But it's just one of those things that I really hope it's on their agenda to do, because they're, again, going by comments in the videos that I upload, that I make, is that people overseas from North America go through a lot to get these dolls. And I empathize, as you know, as a Canadian, and I just think it's totally not fair. And I don't mean this in a political way. You said the same thing last year and the year before. Is the problem with that is it kind of creates this America only kind of feeling. And I've said this before, so this is just what I feel about the dolls. So, and for the record, I'm a doll collector. So if any of these sound like, dude, you need a life, I collect dolls and I talk about them. So this is an aspect of my life. But what I'm saying is that, like, it it does create or evoke this really strange feeling of, as a non-American, do you really want to collect American Girl? Because sometimes they can make you feel so like an outsider, like, oh, you're not one of us. You shouldn't be collecting these dolls. And not just as like, I think as a Canadian, we feel it the least, as you know compared to the rest of the world. But I've never collected anything where there was that feeling. And I've collected big company products before, like Disney. And Disney, they have stores all over, like different websites for all over the world. So there's like Disney Store UK, and I'm talking about online stores, and Europe. So I and they're both big. Like Mattel and Disney are very big companies. So I don't know why Disney can do it one way and American Girl, and I'm not. I don't think that the fact that it's an American Girl is in the name is enough of an excuse, because I think if anything it should be the opposite. They should want people to embrace their dolls from all around the world. They should be proud of their brand and they should be proud that people like their dolls, and therefore make them more accessible rather than make them feel very exclusive sometimes. And I really want to shout out American collectors, not just in American Girl, but anything I've ever collected, because there have always been exclusives, not just to America. It could be to a European country, depending on what you're collecting. And collectors I just find American collectors are always the most, when I say generous, I mean they're so helpful. I've never collected anything and not encountered American collectors who I don't even think it's not something they would understand, because they usually have access to everything. So it's not even like they're doing it like, oh, I know how I've been through this, so I know how hard it is. There's just something about American collectors where they're just like, oh yeah, I'll help you. And that's so that's why it's a funny thing where I'm talking about an American product, but the American collectors are so lovely, and almost like they have to be, because sometimes other people just don't have access to these things that we want, and I think they understand that, and they love the products themselves enough that they're always so generous with, I want to say, like, helping. That's what I meant by generous. Because in the examples I've used, brought up, talking about the fact that I have Wednesday and I have Elphaba. I haven't unboxed Elphaba yet. She's in that stack I mentioned a long time ago. It's only because of collectors in the States, American collectors, that I was able to get them in the first place. Granted, I was able to get a second Wednesday when she showed up on Amazon Canada, kind of randomly, 2 months later. And who knows, maybe I'll get a second Elphaba if that happens again. But that was never guaranteed. And it's still not guaranteed for the Wicked dolls to show up on Amazon Canada. But what was guaranteed is that they're always helpful people. And I know I'm getting a little corny harping on that, but I just feel like it's such a negative video that I do want to focus on the positive every once in a while. And the positive is always the people. Doll communities are always full of amazing people. So that's where it's just like, I can't ignore it. I can't talk about this without talking about that. And you know what I forgot to talk about when I was mentioning the quality control and the designs of the dolls and all the designs of the outfits and all that pink and stuff? I forgot to mention that the quality's gone down. And see, even though I was talking about quality control for the dolls, there is still something very expensive feeling about them. They feel very sturdy. Like I mentioned, the wigs are beautiful, and the faces are. You have to get used to the open mouth. You really do. But once you do, they're very charming. And so sometimes I feel like putting an American Girl outfit on an American Girl doll, sometimes I feel like it brings down the quality of the doll. So I often feel better off putting other outfits on them, like either by Maple Lee, and most of you would know that about me, or even like if you look behind me, that's all handmade stuff, and it's like better than what American Girl is producing sometimes now, most of the time now. They're using a lot of cheaper feeling fabrics, and so I just feel I don't think I really should have talked about that, because that is something that's very disappointing for me, and I don't really hear that much talk about the quality of the fabrics. I think it is mostly that people complain about the colors and maybe some of the designs, because it is a little bit babyish and not historical enough. But I really should have mentioned that, sometimes the fabric choices, except for that Gap outfit, and that's where I think they should be doing a little bit more stuff like that, like just stuff that people would actually wear. And maybe it's because I'm not a kid that I don't understand some of the outfit choices, like the one that I showed you earlier, those reversible outfits. Who's wearing that? Like, oh, I hated those outfits so much. That's why. Anyway, I hope I've touched upon everything I meant to. I think I did. And please feel free to sound out down below, not just if things I've missed, but if you disagree with me, because truthfully, if if I'm wrong, I want to be wrong, especially when it comes to negative things. I want people to say, oh, no, no, it's not that bad. You're being dramatic. I mean, I am dramatic. But, if I'm being dramatic about a particular topic, because here's the thing, like, you never know who's going to see what we write or what we say. You never know who's going to hear our words. And I just feel like for the last probably longer than a couple years than I've noticed, because, like, I'm newish. I just think that there's been this steady decline that people are getting really upset about. So yeah, please, more boy stuff. If I had my wish list, I guess that's how I should put this. My wish list would be more boy stuff. Better limited edition sizes, better quality, less pink, more stuff in the CYO shop would be nice. And just when I say diversifying their releases, I mean like trying different things with the dolls, things that they are either not brave enough to, or their sales indicate that they shouldn't try different things, with certain face molds and things like that. Like, that must be why they use Josefina for every other release. And poor Josefina, that I always pick on that poor girl, her mold. And even things like the quality control is like, I know that from some of my own experiences, but especially from other people's experiences, they really need to get that under control. But it's important to reiterate that this isn't about trashing American Girl. It's about constructive criticism, because I, as a once really hardcore collector, and have had my reasons to become a very, very casual collector, like something really has to speak to me and it has to hit certain criteria. I would like to see a return to form, I guess is probably right way to say it, but maybe I'm not the one to be saying it. Just because I don't think I could ever go back to the way I was collecting last year and the few years or a couple years before that. It was for the best that I hit that wall that I did, because these dolls take up a lot of space and they're expensive. That's granted with anything you collect. Oh, how did I not talk about the plastic that they use? I'm not done ranting. So that's another thing about the old quality of American Girl. When you used to get the furniture, it would all be made from real wood and just the actual materials that would have been used in real life for that period in time, like brass beds and, like I said, wooden boudoirs and stuff like that. And now I think about the things that they come out with and how much plastic they use, which is just such a cheap way to go, and it looks cheap. It's expensive, though, because it's still an American Girl product, so they're still putting that American Girl price tag on it, but you're not getting that quality that you're expecting for the price tag and for the history of the doll line. I think about some of the pieces I get. I've harped on Govey's collection because a lot of her pieces came out that were plastic, but even when I think, what is it, the Jenny's ice cream stuff, it was all plastic. And some things have to be plastic, granted, I understand, and it keeps the prices down, but the prices aren't really down. But, it's like, I don't know, it used to be, again, a product or a brand that really took pride in its products. And the fact is, I fell in love with these dolls enough that I wanted to start a YouTube channel, which is anybody can do it, but it's still such a big thing to do, because, you're literally just sitting here talking to yourself for however long a video is. So I really hope that people understand that I'm, for sure, yes, I'm saying negative things, but it's from a place of love, really. Like, I love these dolls, and I still love the dolls that I've kept. I've had to unload them just because of the room, and there are constantly things coming up that I want to add, but I can't really hang shelves from my ceiling, but if I could, I would. And I would have enough dolls to fill up that space. So that's where I'm saying, it's like, when somebody criticizes something or when somebody gives you feedback, it's because they care. And that's how I feel. Like, if somebody ever gives me in life, not like on my YouTube channel or anything like that, but if anybody ever gives me any kind of feedback, I appreciate it, because it's like, oh, I know it's not easy because you're putting thought into it. So I know it's not easy to have to come up with your opinion and then articulate it. So that's what I'm saying. I hope that this comes across as like a more of a positive thing. It's just, there's always room for improvement. And, even if you go back, if it's almost like, when things usually do get better as they go, but just like in any other mass production, it's like quality goes down, prices go up, but there are ways they could do that in ways that there are ways they could do that without turning off their fan base. And I mentioned some things that, even though it was the Berry Rewards that really was the clincher, there were other things too. Like, a lot of the things I'm mentioning, they did bother me, but when you're really spellbound by something you collect or something you love, then you can look at it through rose-colored glasses. And then for the last year, those glasses have been off, and I've just been like, everyone was right. Everyone was right. The quality's gone down and this and that. And it's like, you kind of like, when you're trying to get over something, you can really zero in on what the problems are. But now I'm talking about it because I do still care about care about the dolls, and the friends I've made on here, because I do feel like with all the conversations we have, that we've gotten to know each other a little bit, which is my way of saying I hope I didn't offend anyone by expressing these opinions, and that I probably am saying things that you agree with too. So thank you for hanging out with me in this really ranty video. I don't know if I've ever really done a rant video before, but it's been coming. It's been building up. And as I said back in the beginning, that I've been planning to talk about this for a long time, but it's just, when it happens, things happen as they're meant to happen. So thank you for hanging out with me in this video, and hopefully I'll see you soon in the next one.